Hey there, I'm Ryan. Gradient maps are one of those things that don't really have a great analog in After Effects. I use them all the time in Photoshop for my color grading, but it's hard to translate them over to this software. There's a couple methods that we can use to get there, and I'm going to show you those today. If you like Photoshop tutorials, After Effects tutorials, you know what the buttons are. You know what to click. Thumbs up, like below, subscribe, comment, do all those things. We'll keep making these for you. So we're starting in After Effects today. If you've been doing this for any sort of amount of time, you know that you don't always get production-ready files. Sometimes you get flat images, sometimes you get the Photoshop files, but not always, and even those Photoshop files might not have what you want in them. So I'm going to show you first how to emulate a gradient map inside of After Effects when you have no gradient map from Photoshop to work with. I'm going to drag in my image here. As always, you will find the link to this image in the description. And we're going to scale it down to 32% like the other one, and we're just going to hide the original. Now we're going to make a new adjustment layer, new, adjustment layer. I'm going to call this gradient map. Come over to your effects and look up the effect Colorama. This is one of those effects that, you know, when you're just browsing through the effects to see what After Effects can do. I'm assuming you've done that. I have. You drop it on and you go, oh, okay, I'm not going to use that ever. It is useful. It is actually useful. If you come over to your output cycle by toggling down the arrow, you'll see this gradient wheel, this color wheel, and the values here are being mapped onto the image just like a gradient map. We don't need all these points though, so we're just going to click and drag them off. The red here is going to be our shadow. The green is going to be our midtone, and this blue is going to be our highlight. So let's change them to the colors that we used. Our highlight was just white. Our midtone was close to this green, but the exact value I have written down here, 1FE36, and the shadow, 1036. As you can tell, it doesn't really look like our original image. We're going to have to adjust these points, and now you can click and drag and adjust them around the circumference, right? So I'm going to drag my highlight all the way up. I had it about 95, but we'll do it right there. The green I'll drag right to midtone. Still not quite there. The problem is that this point sets the base, but unlike a gradient map, it's not going to define how far away that one point is from the edge. I hope that makes sense. If you can picture, actually, you know what? I will bring it up. I have it over here. So the lowest point on that wheel is sitting right there, right? Now, in a gradient map, you can just drag that over. But inside of After Effects, you have to define that all the way on this left edge is still that dark color. So we need to make an extra point on that wheel to define the space that is taken up by this gradient. I hope that made more sense. I will show you. It'll be easier that way. So all we're going to do is create a point, click OK, and make sure it's the correct color. So that was what, 1035, something like that. And now we can use this point to adjust how much of the dark area is taken up by shadow. This is a very imprecise method, but it'll get you relatively close if you don't have a better option. You can also, add another white point over here if you need to, and adjust how bright those highlights are. You can do the same for the green midpoint over here, right? And by doing that, you might be able to get something that's close to your original image, and you're just going to have to toggle back and forth and use really kind of imprecise science to get there, somewhere like that. It's like a close enough scenario, right? There's a better method if you have the original production files available to you. So now we're in Photoshop, and we were lucky with this client. We got the production files with the exact gradient map that we needed. First thing that we're going to do, make sure in your scenario that you're making a backup, because what we're going to do is do a little destructive thing here and just control backspace over the background to make it solid white. Make sure that your colors in your color switcher palette over here are the default colors by hitting D, or else it might fill it with another color. Now we have our gradient map and the solid white background. It is very important that this is a background layer, okay? It has to be a background layer, and it has to be filled white for this to work. What we're going to do, if you're an editor, you might be familiar with this term, a lookup table, a LUT, a color lookup table. It's a way to color grade your film footage. You put a LUT on top of things that help you unify the colors of everything. And, depending on what you want that film piece to look like, you can make it saturated, desaturated, basic color grading, right? You can export LUTs from Photoshop. So you just go to File, export color lookup tables. Only one that we're going to need is the cube. And click OK. So yeah, just uncheck all those, click OK. We're just going to save it. I made a folder here for our lookup tables. So click Save. Back over in After Effects, we're going to make a new adjustment layer. We're going to call this LUT. And in our effects and presets, you're going to look up Apply Color LUT. I've already done that here. And apply it. This is going to prompt you to find your color LUT, look it up, and import it by clicking Open. Now you've got an exact lookup table, the exact gradient map that you had from Photoshop. You are very fortunate if you still have the production files, because this is going to be much more subtle and work the same exact way from the Photoshop file. Now you can put anything underneath here. I just use an image, but it works for video, works for any sort of animated footage. Just slap the LUT on top and it will map everything to that color just like a gradient map. That's it. That's the whole thing. I try to keep these fairly short. I've got a short attention span. I'm sure you do too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, come back again, learn some more stuff. See you then.